Hello, hello, hello. What ho? Welcome back to another exciting adventure of the Ubercast and the Plain Truth. I'm your host, Travis Finley. This was a debate slash discussion. It wasn't okay. It wasn't a debate. It wasn't a debate because there was no semblance of order or structure to this in terms of it was just bedlam, and especially when Professor James Fetzer glitches out and loses his Smurf over whatever. Okay, so welcome to the show. I'm your host, Travis Finley. This is going to be an extemporaneous response to what Fetzer brings up in terms of refraction as evidence of a globe.
Why about these issues of the perception of the horizon? Why distant skyscrapers are visible despite the curvature of Earth? This applies to the type of argument that Austin's been making. This
Okay, so first of all, he says why. I can't remember exactly why skyscrapers or distant objects can be seen or visible despite the curvature of the Earth. Again, he's asserting that the Earth is curved before he's. This is just the assumption, right? Let's deal with why we can see it, why we can't see it, and show those befores and afters. But I'm going to go back because I want to listen to what
here
he says
about
again.
these issues of the perception of the horizon. Why distant skyscrapers are visible despite the curvature of Earth. This applies to the type of argument that Austin's been making. This photo was taken at Mount Baldy in Indiana, Dunes National Park on the southeast coast of Lake Michigan, roughly 60 kilometers across the water from the city of Chicago.
Okay, so this isn't helpful right now because we just made a switch over to a different visual, but it seems to me that I can clearly see that there's an inferior mirage right here, right? Why distant skyscrapers are visible despite the curvature of the Earth. Like, I don't even know if this photo was taken, like, this is probably his own file. Like, I wouldn't be able to look up this page or something like that. But I can clearly see right here that there is inferior mirage. I guess my mouse is fine right there, okay, right? There's an inferior mirage right here, okay? So that means that out here in the skyline here, this is an inferior mirage out here. This is not the sky, right? This is not the sky. The sky stops about right here. You can even see that line, at least I can see that band. Shout out to the Aether Band. Everybody drink, okay? So even right here, we don't need to talk about curvature. We don't need to talk about flat Earth. We have simply to have a control image that we then compare the test cases so that if you have only images of mirage, then each of those images is going to give you a different presentation of the field of view while that mirage is there. So you're going to be able to use that evidence, but you're not going to be able to contrast it with a control where you can see everything. Like I have a control of a distant shoreline 6 miles away. I can see the shoreline, I can show you the shoreline, I can show you the boat ramp. Okay? So it's visible. It's visible. It's visible. And then the only other time I can't ever see it is when there's a mirage or when the distortion in the ether is so significant that it just swallows up the light in diffusion and diffraction. It diffuses the light so that you don't have an image to determine what it is. You can see things out there, but they're blurry, and it's not blurry because of the camera, it's blurry because of the conditions. But you're always in, when there's an inferior mirage, when there is a high degree of refraction energy in the air, ether energy in the air, or when you can see the shoreline. In all of those, you're always looking the same distance. You can see the shoreline here, you can see it here, but it's not clear, and you can't see it here because it's behind the mirage, not curvature. It's never curvature. It's never curvature.
Michigan, roughly 60 kilometers across the water from the city of Chicago, which lies on the opposite bank. At that distance, Chicago's skyline should not be visible as a curvature of Earth takes it beyond the horizon. The fact that the buildings are visible is simply a mirage.
Okay, so again, the only mirage is right here. Okay, so he's not breaking this image down. So this part is the only part that has a mirage, Mr. Fetzer. This is not a mirage. This is not a mirage. This is not a mirage. The only thing that's miraged here is the point of convergence with the water and the sky. Okay. See if there's anything else I want to say about this. Again, we would have to have a control image of when we could see this without the mirage. What does this look like in other conditions, in other times of the year, when we can clearly see farther and in a different field of view? Okay, because in different conditions, this field of view is going to change dramatically. It's going to drop, it's going to recede, it's going to get closer, it's going to raise up. Those are all four of those things that I just described are all optical. It's never physical curvature. Okay, so the only thing you can call a mirage is right down here at the bottom, and that means that right here is the sky. I'm sorry, right here is the miraged sky. Okay, so then the line right here where the water apparently stops, the reason why you can't see farther than that is because there's a mirage right there. The mirage is creating this apparent limit to the water, but it's only apparent. It's not curvature. It's not curvature. The entire line all the way across the screen right here, this is caused by refraction. It is not caused by Earth curvature.
Mirages are usually created when a cold, dense layer of air sits above a layer of warmer, less dense air. For example, when the sun beats down on a black road on a hot summer's day, the ground, warm ground, heats the bottom few centimeters of air, refracting sunlight up to your eyes to create an inferior mirage. But if a layer of warm air sits above your line of sight with a cool layer beneath.
Okay, all he's doing right now, I've seen this page before, I've looked up this, I've researched this. All he's doing right now is regurgitating pseudoscience. No one can demonstrate this, no one ever has. No one can show you, they can describe what they think is happening. So all he's reading right now is a mythological retelling of what he thinks is happening. Okay? Because he talked about warm air sitting above your line of sight with a cool layer beneath. Warm air sitting above your line of sight with a cool layer beneath. The only reason why they're saying that is because they have this idea of cold being more dense than hot. Okay? But if you have the surface of the Earth, whether it's aquatic or terrestrial, the sun is heating up the surface. That is warm. Warm. And then it just gets cooler and cooler and cooler and cooler and cooler and cooler and cooler, right? But it's warm and then less warm and then less warm and then cool. So you have a dense, the cooler the air gets, the more dense it's getting, right? But it's heavier. So then why isn't it under, right? Anyway, I do not want to get off on that. All he's doing right now is just regurgitating pseudoscience. None of this has been proven. None of this can be demonstrated. It can only be explained, and they have to explain it this way because they assume that the Earth is curved, and they've run into real problems where people go, well, wait a minute. If the Earth is curved, how come this? And they're like, but the XYZ, but they don't have. That's just an explanation. There's no valid science to go behind that.
You get a superior mirage. Light bends down toward the denser air. But because our eyes assume the light has traveled in a straight line, the object...
Our eyes don't assume anything. Our eyes don't assume what the light is doing. The light is doing what the light does. Our eyes do what our eyes do. Our eyes don't assume anything. That's just not a helpful way to talk. The only thing that can assume anything is your mind. You interpret what you see. Your lungs don't assume that water is wet. Whatever.
Object appears higher than it is. This effect also explains why a far-off ship can be seen even though it might have disappeared below.
Okay, now he's not showing us any example. He's just saying that there's a ship that apparently disappeared behind the horizon, and then we can see it. Well, if you can see it, then it didn't disappear behind the horizon. You get it?
The horizon. It can be off ship can be seen even though it might have disappeared below the horizon. It can even make distant boats appear to float in the air.
Okay, look. It can make boats appear to float in the air. No, it can't. That's called an inferior mirage. I have a couple of videos in my channel on that very topic. It doesn't make boats float in the air. No, it doesn't. Only refraction can do that, and it's over an extended plane. So let's just break down what he says again. Just listen to what he says.
Light bends down toward the denser air, but because our eyes assume the light has traveled in a straight line, the object appears higher than it is. This effect also explains why a far-off ship can be seen even though it might have disappeared below the horizon.
Okay, again, even though it might have disappeared, where did that ship go? I can't see it. Bloop. Oh, there it is. The refraction just brought it up. It never went out of your sight. It never disappeared over the curve. You couldn't see it. Oh, I can't see the ship anymore. And then, boop, there it is. That's never happened. That's never happened. But that's what he just described. When a ship goes over the horizon so you can't see it, and then refraction brings it up so that you can see it, no. You're seeing it because it's right there in front of you. There's no reason to appeal to curvature at all, ever. If you see a ship, at any point, it's always directly in front of you. It's never over the curve being brought up. Because listen to what happens with the calculation for refraction. They incorporate the radius of the Earth, and then they exaggerate the size of the Earth, which flattens out the surface. If you go and look up Andrew Thomas Young, he will describe this process to you. That the formula that they have for standard atmospheric refraction flattens out the curve so that it appears flat and sometimes concave. That's what he said. No. That's what you see all the time at different times in various seasons and times. You will look out across distance every single time, and the limit to your distance every single time is refraction. It is never anything else. If you're looking out over aquatic distance, or if you're in a wilderness and there's just distance and distance and distance, it's never curvature that limits your view. It is never curvature that limits your ability to see farther. It is always refraction. So, if it's refraction that limits your ability to see the object, then what is it that explains why you can see the object? I couldn't see the object yesterday. Right, it's because refraction was creating an obstacle. And we have different ways of talking about that, but we have to repackage all of them. Looming, sinking, towering, and stooping, those are all real events that happened as a result of refraction. None of these four are mirages, however. Looming and sinking is not a mirage, and towering and stooping are not mirages. Why? Because there's no second image. And you only have one thing, mirage. You don't have superior mirage. There's no such thing. I've got a couple of videos, I think. I made a couple of videos on the fact that there's no such thing as a superior mirage. All mirages are underneath. There's no reason to call it an inferior mirage because you have nothing to compare it to. It's not superior and inferior. It's always just mirage. There's no reason, even though I'm going to slip up in the future, I will slip up and say inferior mirage. I've got to unlearn how to say it, but I'm telling you now, I'm decrying and denying that the descriptors of superior and inferior have anything to do in this discussion. It is just only always mirage. Okay? And the entire field of view changes. It's not just the visibility of the target. Everything in the view, every single day, you go out, take a picture. Go out and take a picture of the distance, because that's where these observations are being made. Ships aren't right next to you and you see the curvature. You have to see it at a distance. So we have to make these long distance, low level observations. All of you naysayers will say, oh, just get up higher on a mountain. You don't belong in this discussion, because those words should never come out of your mouth, because as you know, that when you climb up, you can see farther. And if you see farther, you're just compounding the lack of visibility. You're just scaling it bigger. The same reason why you can't see far enough at ground level is the same reason why your limited vision happens when you're 300 or maybe even, say, 11,000 feet high. Look how far we can see, but then at the end, oh, it blurs out. It blurs out. That's not curvature. That's the aether band. Everybody drink. Okay, so his appeal to mirage is out of just complete ignorance. He's done no independent thinking on this. He's just puking back what the mainstream has out here. Yeah, I'm going to stop. Yeah, so this is not the... This is the only part that I wanted to check out was his comments here on... Okay, so you've heard me say this. There are videos on my channel where I... try to offer up explanations and observations where I counter the mainstream science. So the mainstream science, in my opinion, has at least 3 areas that they need to remedy. And I'm your Copernicus. I'm the only one saying this. There are other people who say what I'm saying, but they're not taking the aggressive format of making videos about it. They would agree with me. I've had conversations with these comrades in arms and other people who are making observations with cameras. And when we have our discussions, they understand what I'm saying and they don't correct me. Okay? And all I'm trying to say ultimately is, in the broadest way of, I don't even know how to say this, in the simplest terms, because I'm making this content the way I am, I'm the only one saying this. No one else was ever saying that mirages are not vertical images. I am. I'm the only one who's saying that. Other people agree with me because now that I've explained it, they go, oh, I get it. Okay? So, I would love to have a discussion with James Fetzer on this matter, because he needs to acknowledge that all he's been doing in this discussion for this point is just simply regurgitate. He's done nothing himself. Because for me, having done this myself, I can't unsee what I've seen. And I can't re-see it. You can't squeeze the toothpaste out of the tube and then put it back in. Can't do it. I can't go back to the globe. And I can't go back to the false understanding of what mirages are. Can't do it. And if it's possible, the only thing that would do it would be for me to be able to investigate the original manuscripts that these scientists are basing their claims on. Because if you think about it, the references in Andrew Thomas Young and others will refer to earlier writers in the 17th century, 18th century. What did they have? They weren't going out onto the field. Oh, they were? Where is that record? How do you know what they were? How do you know what they were measuring? Because here's my prediction, that if we were to look at this information, you would find that they're doing the exact same thing I'm doing. They're standing in a location, looking out across the distance at a target, and they're simply describing what they think they're seeing. Now, I'm not assuming that there's a curvature. They were. So then they had to interpret what they were seeing on the basis of that curvature. They had to bring C into the discussion when it doesn't need to be there. It's a value that can be completely erased because we can see more of the target at other times than we can when we can see the target more sometimes. Sometimes we can see more of the target than we could in other times, and that's always refraction, the only thing that ever changes, especially if you don't change your location and the observation that you're making. Nothing's going to change physically. The only thing that's going to adjust and mess up that ability for you to see that target in any fashion is refraction. But when you see that target, it's always right there in front of you. It's right there physically, and that's the way it looks through the medium that's between you and the target at that time under those conditions. There's just like I said in my previous video, that the flat earth term would never be created by someone who just the term flat earth would never be created by someone who didn't assume the earth was a sphere. Like, there's no reason to create that language. There's no reason for 15,000 years ago, a caveman and woman teaching their children the earth is flat. They would never have done that. Ever. They would never have done that. They would have just taught the child how to get from one location to the next. And so what I'm saying is that I would never use superior mirage as a description of what I'm seeing, because I've watched enough of my content, I've researched enough of this topic to know that a mirage requires that the target is above and the image is inverted and below. That's it. There's just mirage. There's no reason to refer to it as inferior, because a superior mirage never exists. Never existed. And the only claims that we have about these things are ships apparently flying in the sky in the distance. Well, that has to be over water, and we all know that the horizon is optical and created by refraction. I'm sorry, I said we all know, but if you're still on the ball side, then you're not going to admit to that. But my point is that the alternative for the explanation that you think is curvature, the alternative is refraction. So show me when your earliest atmospheric scientist disqualified refraction as the cause for a superior mirage. Because the earth is curved. A superior mirage, it's always just going to be there. It's just going to be in a different position, higher or lower, but that's again, I'm getting lost in my own thoughts right now. I've made more detailed videos on my channel where I break this down. So happy hunting to find them. Excuse me. But yeah, these are just ignorant statements. These are ignorant men. The only thing that I could hope to do is to show him, my interpretation based on, and go through the step-by-step like I did with Dr. Nave. Dr. Nave had no problem with anything that I ever said until he got bombarded by the sociopath Sean Hawkins. So, anyway, all right. Thank you so much for tuning in to another exciting adventure of the Ubercast, the Plain Truth, Pensamientos del Viejo. Please hit that like if you made it this far. Hit that like, share the content, and then also make a comment in the comment section. Just remember, the comment section is for love, it's not for haters. Haters can go smurf off. All right, there you go. I will check you later.